Hey folks, Alan MandicReally here, coming to you with a new product from Creality, the CRTouch, their own take on an auto bed leveling sensor. Is it better than a BL-Touch? Let's find out. Let's get the quick disclosure out of the way. The folks at Creality did provide this to me free of charge. However, this is not sponsored video or anything like that. This is my own honest opinion about this product. I'm pretty sure when they sent this to me, they were really expecting I was gonna make like a 30-second TikTok video about it, and that was that. Which honestly tells me that they don't know me. We are going to unbox this thing. We are going to install it onto one of my Ender 3s, and then we are going to directly compare it to an official BL-Touch. There will be the timestamps down below so you can jump around if you wish. Now, opening up the stylish magnetically closed box, you will find the CRTouch itself, a Creality branded magnetic type touch auto bed level sensor. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment, but it also comes with various brackets for installation on various Creality machines, such as the CR10, Ender 3s, or Ender 5s. Underneath of that, you'll find a cable to hook up the CRTouch to your main board, as well as some hardware and the installation instructions that come with it. I had already unboxed it, installed it, tested it, and re-boxed it to unbox it for you folks, so some of this packaging is a little bit different than what you will get when you receive it. The brackets you receive are coated steel construction, press brake bent. I have no complaints about these as a fabricator myself. The three things I noticed about the sensor right off the bat: it's a little bit chunky, plastic body design that I kind of like the style of. Creality branding on there to tell you this is their sensor. It has a smoked plastic construction to it that harkens back to late 90s nostalgia for me. I've kind of been wondering why that hasn't come back around more lately, and I'm liking seeing it here. The electrical connection is at the very top of the sensor, which I like for easy plugging in of your harness connection and disconnecting if you need to for servicing. Now, the probe that comes with this is actually a metal construction. I like that versus maybe the plastic probe of the BL-Touch, but we'll more directly compare toward the end of this video. The installation instructions are pretty straightforward. They are as good, if not better, than I usually expect from Creality on the whole, so yeah, they could be a little bit better, maybe an installation video attached with a QR code here or there. The biggest thing I was disappointed about with what came in this box was that there was no SD card. The instructions tell you to go to Creality's website to download firmware for this. I understand this for multiple reasons. One, they save it on an SD card. Two, you'll get the most recent firmware, but it's Creality. Let's face it, the most recent firmware is not that recent. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get to the installation, but there is one thing to consider here. This is intended for use with a 4.2.2 or 4.2.7 Creality mainboard. Those are the 32-bit mainboards from Creality, both the non-silent or somewhat silent versus the silent board that are available for the Ender 3s. I have two Ender 3s, and both of them came with 4.2.2 boards, and both of them have been upgraded from there. These boards have a dedicated BL-Touch port on them, and also the firmware we're going to be installing requires that 32-bit processor that those boards have. The first step for me was installation of the CRTouch onto the mounting bracket. I did this off of the machine because I found this to be easier than doing it the other way around. To install the sensor and bracket onto the machine, we just remove the two screws that hold the fan shroud around the hot end onto the gantry plate. Then I actually just used those exact same two screws, stuck them through the bracket of the CRTouch, and then into that housing once again to reinstall all of it, sandwiching the fan shroud housing between the CRTouch bracket and the gantry plate. Next up is wiring. I connected the one end connection, the smaller connector, to the CRTouch, and then routed it along with the Bowden tube and the wiring for the hot end, zip tying it along, bundling all of those together. I did initially try feeding it through the loom, and that was just proving to be a little bit too much of a pain for me, and I also knew that I wanted to film this video and might be removing it later on, so I just skipped that in the end. Next up is connecting this thing to the main board. First, I have to remove the electronics case cover, and next is arguably the most difficult step in this entire process. I have to feed that big connection for the BL-Touch to the main board through the frame into the electronics case and then plug it into the BL-Touch connection, which is keyed so it goes one way. It's very straightforward. It was just a little bit of a pain to feed it through the frame and then snake it along and kind of route it inside of the box nicely, especially since I've got at least one buck converter in there for some of the fan mods that I've made. While you're in the electronics case is an excellent time to remove the Z limit switch off of the frame and the wiring associated with it. The CRTouch is going to be the Z homing switch from now on, so you no longer need the limit switch and it will just cause conflicts being there. Close back up the electronics housing and it's time for firmware. Now this was my first big hurdle with the CRTouch. The instructions clearly state to go to Creality's website, download the firmware, and you'll be good to go. And now myself as somebody knowing how to go through this process, that was pretty straightforward. But I went to Creality's website, I downloaded what seemed to be the proper firmware for using a CRTouch or a BL-Touch. The firmware knows no difference between the two and does not care. So I downloaded that, tried to install that, and it didn't work out for me. I was able to flash the firmware just fine, but it was a non-auto bed leveling firmware, so it did nothing for me. What I did was I reached out to Creality and asked them, hey, what's up here? I downloaded firmware off of your website. It doesn't seem to be working for me. Can you provide me with firmware that's going to work for this? They sent me a firmware file. It worked out just fine for me once I downloaded that and flashed that to the main board. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a link in the description down below to my GitHub page, and I'm gonna upload the firmware that Creality sent to me. So if you have some trouble with this thing, you could download that firmware that did work for me and see if it works for you. Okay, it's time to talk about my biggest pet peeve about this entire kit, these instructions, all of it. Z probe offset. If you've ever set up an automatic bed level sensor, then you understand that your Z height, your Z probe offset is critical to the operation of it. The instructions kind of gloss over doing it. They have like 2 or 3 little blurbs about it and a couple of really small pictures trying to show you how to do it. It's awful instructions for a beginner. If somebody didn't know what they were doing, this would probably turn them off. And the most annoying thing about it is that Marlin Firmware has a tool built into it to help you do this called Z Offset Wizard. It works so well and it makes the job so much easier, and it's going to help beginners get the job done far smoother. Creality could enable this in their firmware, but the firmware they provided to me was from 4/20 of 2020, so it's over 1 year old at this point, and I don't even know that it could enable this function if they wanted to. When I compiled the firmware for the testing we're about to get into, then I enabled this function and it worked just fine on this machine. When we put the BL-Touch side by side with the CRTouch, we can see that it's not just another knockoff BL-Touch. I thought maybe it was a BL-Touch inside of different clothing, but the more I look at it, the less I think that's actually the case. Maybe it's the same core technology, but overall it is a different product. By the way, there's a link in the description down below to a blog post on my website which has photos of the inside of this, macro photos, so you can take a look at what's going on inside of the CRTouch sensor. Now obviously the CRTouch was designed to work in places where the BL-Touch was previously. It has the same bolt pattern, the same spacing for the bolt pattern so that it can work right on the mounts that would have accepted the BL-Touch previously. However, in most other ways it's different. You've got that metal probe that I discussed on there instead of the plastic one. While the BL-Touch has a replaceable plastic probe, the CRTouch has a non-replaceable metal probe. So if you had a catastrophic crash, maybe you could bend that probe and it might screw up the CRTouch and ruin it, but that would have to be a pretty catastrophic crash. The connector on both of these is the same. You can directly replace a BL-Touch with a CRTouch and vice versa, which is what I did for my testing. And I personally like that the connector for the CRTouch is at the back where the mounting flange is. I feel like that makes the wiring just a little bit easier. I've designed some custom situations for BL-Touches in the past where it's difficult to get in there and make the connection, so you almost have to make it before you bolt the thing together, and that can be another challenge in itself. However, the CRTouch is bigger in every way and heavier. The CRTouch measures a little over 1/2 millimeter shorter than the BL-Touch, which could be useful in some situations, but does mean that if you're switching from one to the other, you're going to need to adjust your Z probe offset, which you should be doing even if you're replacing a BL-Touch with a BL-Touch. However, the CRTouch is a little chunkier. It is 16mm by 16mm approximately wide, whereas the BL-Touch is about 13mm by 14mm, so it is a little slimmer to fit into different situations. And the last detail that might be the biggest one to some of you folks out there, though granted if you're doing like speed benchy runs, you're probably not running an ABL at all, Anyway, that is weight. The CR Touch weighs in on my scale at 11 grams, whereas this BL-Touch weighs in at 7 grams. Now it's time to discuss testing. As the
mad scientist of all trades!
Well, I went ahead and tested these head-to-head, back-to-back with some scientific data. Okay, it's not necessarily the scientific method, as I only had one CR Touch and one BL-Touch to test against each other on one machine. I could absolutely get more scientific about this, but for what I have at my disposal right now, this is what we did. The first test that I ran is one built into Marlin. It's called the M48. M48 is a repeatability test that tests the sensor over and over again. It probes over and over again, and as it does, it averages all of the readings that it gets to see how accurate the sensor is to itself. It does this many times, and I then ran the M48 6 times overall. I took those numbers and I averaged all 6 of those results, and that is what you're seeing on the graph here. And in my testing of all those probes, the CR Touch was actually more accurate than the BL-Touch. Not by a wide margin, but it was. And the thing about that is that according to Creality's website, they only rate the CR Touch at 0.04 millimeter accuracy. I was getting results well above that, so I'm pretty impressed in that regard. Now for more of a real world test, I visualized the bed on the Ender 3 with these 2 sensors. Now many of us understand the beds on Ender 3s are often warped, and mine are no exception. And that's one of the ways that an ABL can really help you out, is figuring out that warp into your first layer of your print. So I ran each of these sensors through 2 visualization tests, and I'm putting the results up here now. These are 6x6 grid tests on the same bed, on the same machine, only difference being the Z-probe offset and the sensor actually doing the testing. I'm not really sure what this is telling you. The visualization is slightly different between these 2 sensors. Which one is more accurate? I cannot say. By the repeatability test, I might want to trust the CR Touch a little bit better here. But this is a comparison. I just wanted to see if the results were going to wildly vary between the 2 of them in a real world situation, and they did not. All right, testing done, it's conclusion time. What do I really think of the CR Touch when compared to a BL-Touch? Honestly, overall, I was far more impressed with it than I thought it was going to be. I expected when they sent it to me, it was just going to be a BL-Touch clone and maybe a lesser quality one, but I've actually found, I think, the opposite. I think it's actually, in my opinion, a slightly better variation on it, or an interesting twist on the BL-Touch. Now on Creality's website, the kit that I showed you here for the CR Touch is going for $49.99. The equivalent BL-Touch kit with the same brackets and wiring and all of that coming in the kit is $48.99 on their website. So you're paying $1 more for the slightly sleeker looking CR Touch. But if you jumped over to Amazon, there's a $6 off coupon right now on the $48.99 kit for the BL-Touch. You can get it for $42.99. Hey folks, Editing Alan here, just chiming in real quick. I want to make a quick statement. In this video, I first off feel I came off a little harsher than I intended to about my critiques of the kit, but they are also critiques that I feel are valid. But with that, the folks at Creality did reach out while I was editing this video and specifically ask for input about the kit and ways that they could improve it. So I did provide that to them. I told them what problems I had with it and what I would like to see. This did come to me before release, so there is the potential that they will update this kit before you ever receive it. I do not know. But I just want to throw that in there, a little addendum, be fair to them, because they are asking for input. Whether they implement it or not, I do not know, but hopefully they do. Back to the video. There will be links in the description down below to both of these products, so if you're interested in picking one up, if you can make a decision on which one's right for you, well, they are down there. Those are both affiliate links, so if you do use them, I do get a small kickback for you using them, but it doesn't cost you anything more, so please consider using them. I personally am gonna leave the CR Touch on the Ender 3 that it's installed on right now. I like it. I like the look of it. It fits the machine well. It works well. I'm gonna leave it. I wish that Creality would update their instructions and their firmware more often, but this kit overall is as good as a BL-Touch kit, absolutely. If not, maybe a little bit better. And that's it for this one, folks. If you found this video interesting, please drop it a like. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of the CR Touch compared to the BL-Touch? Are you gonna change out your BL-Touches for CR Touches, or do you just not care? Let me know in the comments down below. Get subscribed to keep up to date with all the MandicReally content, and thanks for coming around, folks.